In the mountains lies a land where empires have been tested, where ambition meets resistance, and where empires go to die. June 18, 1815. The British Empire stood at the height of its power, having just broken the will of its last true rival Napoleon on the fields of Waterloo. From that moment, Britannia's reach would stretch unchallenged across every corner of the globe. The 19th century would come to be known as the British century, an age of industry, conquest, and ambition. Amidst this 19th century chaos, Russia was also rising. Over the centuries, the small principality of Muscovy had overthrown its Central Asian overlords. Now unbound, it turned its gaze outwards, ready to carve out its own destiny. The Kingdom of Afghanistan stood in a perilous state, a land hemmed in by feasting eyes. To the west lay Persia, to the north, the restless empire of Russia, and to the east, first the Mughals and now the British. Amidst this chaos rose Dost Muhammad Khan, a man born not to privilege but to turmoil. He was the son of Sardar Payanda Khan, a Barakzai noble whose assassination, when Dost Muhammad was still young, left the family fractured. He was one of many brothers, learning early that survival in Kabul meant loyalty one day and rivalry the next. By 1826, he had secured full control, uniting the Barakzai tribes in rule. And like all Afghan rulers before and those yet to come, a careful balancing act is needed to maintain his fragile kingdom. The Russians, seeking every means to unsettle their British rivals, sent emissaries to the Afghan court. Among them, the agent Captain Vitkovich in 1837. They also secretly lent covert encouragement to the Persian siege of Herat. The city, ancient and predominantly Persian-speaking, had long been thought of as the gateway to India, a prize that periodically slipped between Afghan and Persian hands. Herat's defences, commanded by Yar Muhammad Khan, and stiffened by the unexpected arrival of a British officer named Lieutenant Pottinger. The city withstood months of pressure from a Persian army riven by corruption, indecision, and supply failure. And the Shah's hesitation and the army's collapse doomed the campaign. Fearing that Afghanistan might fall into Russian hands, Lord Auckland, Governor General in India, concluded that the forward policy required decisive action, and in 1838, the British issued the similar manifesto, authorizing an expedition to restore the deposed Afghan king Shah Shuja and secure the northwestern frontier. Some 21,000 men, largely sepoys from the armies of British India, were put into motion for the campaign. What had begun as games of espionage now boiled into an open march of arms, and so the pieces were set upon the board. The march to war had begun. The British advanced through Sindh and into the Bolon Pass. The march was a nightmare. Cholera and starvation was rampant among the camp followers. Contemporary accounts describe sepoys collapsing by the hundreds, a grim foreshadowing of what was to come. Despite this, the British carried the weight of India behind them. Trained officers, the best equipment of the age, and a large disciplined army. Defeat seemed impossible. Still, the Dost believed he could win. In July 1839, the British reached Kandahar, then ruled by the Emir's half-brother. Realizing their fate, they deemed surrender without a fight was the wiser course. Thus, Kandahar fell without resistance. The city, home to elite tribes of the royal family, was more than a prize. Its capture was a dagger in the side of the Emir. Filled with confidence, the British pressed on, moving towards the fortress of Ghazni. On July 20th, 1839, the fortress was deemed impenetrable. The English side was led by Sir John Keane, and the defenders by the Emir's son, Hyder Khan. An army of 3,000 Afghans against 9,000 British and their sepoy troops. They made camp on the plains outside the city, and reconnaissance missions soon relayed crucial information. The fortress was well defended on every gate, except one, the Kabul gate. At 3 a.m. on the 23rd of July, the 16th Bengal Division, supported by the 2nd and 17th Regiments, took up position to cut off escape routes. At dawn, a 300-pound explosive charge was placed at the gate, and the gate was blown to pieces. British forces rushed the breach, bayonets flashing and hacking down defenders, as Afghan tribal contingents returned the favour, cutting down sepoys and British troops in brutal close combat. Lieutenant Colonel Orchard of the 16th Bengal Infantry was fatally struck by a musket fire as the gates were blown, a detail noted in the memoirs of Sir John Keane. Despite the bravery of the Afghan forces, the citadel was overrun and Hyder Khan was captured. The once mighty fortress had fallen, and the Dost's position now seemed even more uncertain than ever. The road to Kabul, the summer capital of the Afghan kingdom, was now open. They marched on Kabul, entering without resistance, and the British hoisted their flags. The throne was now lost. The Emir fled north, narrowly escaping capture. He reached the valley of Parwan near Charikar with around 2,000 horsemen, and soon encountered a British contingent of roughly 1,000 men. What the British might do if they captured him was a thought likely running through his mind. The British pursued him through the valley, dispatching Colonel McLaren, but the Afghan forces, positioned on higher ground, feinted a retreat, drawing in more British troops at the right moment. They charged downhill, slaughtering the British in a sudden but furious counterattack, and the survivors retreated, leaving behind their dead and wounded. But on November 3rd, 1840, the Dost surrendered voluntarily. Realizing further resistance was futile, he went into an honourable exile in India, where he would remain until 1843. With the Emir in exile, the British settled in Kabul, confident that peace had been secured. Officers built gardens, played cricket, and even hosted plays and tea parties, and life inside the cantonment grew comfortable, even pleasant. But beyond the city walls, resentment was rising. Tribal leaders who had once been paid to keep order saw their stipends cut off, breeding anger among the Ghilzai and Koistani tribes. The calm in Kabul would not last. November 1841. A mob in Kabul rose up and murdered Sir Alexander Burnes and his assistants. What began as a protest over unpaid subsidies quickly escalated into a full-scale revolt. Burnes' severed head was paraded through the streets, a gruesome signal that the occupation was over. The rebellion quickly spread, led by Muhammad Akbar Khan, the son of Dost Muhammad. The British commander, Major General William Elphinstone, old and fragile, failed to act decisively, and within weeks, Afghan tribes had surrounded the cantonment. Supply lines were cut and morale collapsed. On the 23rd of December 1841, during a supposed parley, Muhammad Akbar Khan captured and executed Sir William Macnaghten, the British chief political officer. Desperate, the British sought to negotiate safe passage, but the Afghan terms shifted constantly. As winter deepened, starvation and confusion set in, sealing their fate. On the 6th of January 1842,
around 4,500 troops, mostly Indian sepoys, and 12,000 camp followers, began their doomed retreat from Kabul to Jalalabad.
Promised safe passage, the column was instead ambushed within hours of departure. Afghan tribesmen occupied the surrounding heights, raining musket fire onto the rearguard, as freezing winds and deep snow slowed the march. In the narrow passes around Kabul, discipline simply vanished. Men froze where they stood, and ammunition wagons lay half buried in the snow. Brigadier Shelton's rearguard fought for hours, but with little coordination, resistance soon crumbled. By the time the survivors reached the Tezin Pass, only fragments of the 44th Foot Regiment, a few horse artillery gunners, and scattered cavalry remain. On the 13th of January, roughly 60 men made their last stand at Gandamak Hill, forming a hollow square as Afghan marksmen closed in. Surrounded and out of ammunition, they fixed bayonets and fought to the death. And when it was over, only a handful were captured, and one surgeon, William Benjamin, rode into Jalalabad, half dead, to deliver the news. The army of the Indus had ceased to exist.
And though the shadow of this debacle would linger, the story was far from over. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more historical content.